We're too far gone for rock and roll. The time has come to shock as lions, softer voiced than priests. This is an interesting and challenging time that we live in. We're at a nexus of social issues and ethical conflicts. We're looking at an increasingly earnest public debate about bullying and other forms of socially sanctioned cruelty. But this is also closely paired with an LGBT community, friends, and supporters that will not quietly accept the 3 steps forward, 2 steps back we've been seeing in recent years. And sometimes more than 2 steps back. At the same time, we are battling a resurgence of homophobia and socially acceptable racism that I'd hoped to never see in my time. The Western world, and America in particular, is not so distant from its history of institutionalized bigotry, apartheid, and barbarism that we can afford to feel so comfortable with those sorts of sentiments. Here on YouTube we see a reflection of what is happening elsewhere, out there in the day-to-day world sans cameras and green screens. Bigotry perpetrated in the name of rationalism, faith, lack of faith. But the Christians, atheists, and others frightened of the so-called and often whispered dangerous Muslims sound far more alike than they would care to admit. No side of any argument, and certainly not this one, has a monopoly on reason or on insanity. On the front of religious views and sexual or gender identity, we must, all of us, recognize a grim truth. However good your intentions might be, hate the sin will always ring louder than love the sinner. No caveat or qualifier will erase a target painted on another person. And if one is uncomfortable with seeing their comrades taking aim, perhaps one would do well to ask if their apologies will be sufficient to deflect the incoming fire. We hear stories of persecution perpetrated by persons of all ideologies, perpetrated upon persons of all ideologies, and while we inflict wounds on each other, from the superficial to the crippling, children and teens are watching, and all too often swallow these sentiments without the measured patience of adulthood, or act upon them without the temperance of experience. This is a time of rallying cries. We have been moved by words like hope and sanity. There is another word I would propose for our political and ideological vocabulary: compassion. The necessary partner of hope, the midwife of sanity, and among the first of our knickknacks to hit the rummage sale table when times get tough. Like the O. Henry story, we have pawned the thing most precious to us, but not for the sake of the person with whom we share poverty and love. Not for the sake of seeing light dance anew on the face for which we rise every morning, trudge through the grit and shrapnel of our days, or short the portions on our plates that they might eat the fuller. No, compassion lies on the mildewed card table among chipped coffee mugs and porcelain figurines because, in our desperation, we have forgotten how precious it is, and how pertinent to that desperation. For the heart of compassion is nothing more and nothing less than regarding suffering as significant. We do not forget without cause. The easiest, deceptively appealing escape from misery is to tell ourselves that our conditions are not miserable, that our pains are of no consequence, and ere long, no pain is of consequence. Like some over-anesthetized doughboy shuffling out of a Faulkner novel, we seek to walk on broken limbs, drown the sound of shelling in morphine dreams, caring little for ourselves, and less for those around us. I understand why we forgot. But we cannot afford such indulgences, as we cannot afford the mealy-mouthed excuses of punditry that would have its cake and eat it too. Be advocacy and revolution when it suits to stir the fire, and excuse oneself as entertainment when accountability comes due. We cannot afford the cruelties of voyeuristic torture porn, of social draw and quartering because we are not the audience, and no more the writing staff. In this reality entertainment of debate, debasement, scandal, and savagery, we are the cast, and the traps we cackle in designing will close around our throats too. The pain of other people is real, and so is yours. Those conditions are closely linked, and nowhere more apparently than in your ability to recognize those conditions. Blind yourself to their pain, and you blind yourself to your own. Revel in their downfalls, and you plant the seeds of your downfall. This may sound like nothing to the nihilist, or those who've given up hope, but I can say this, with as much conviction, as much certainty as I can any scientific fact or declaration of faith. The human condition can be glorious. No miseries are immutable. And taking people from the grasp of darkness, from despairs deeper than death, into joy is worth living for, worth struggling for, and worth every breath that will ever pass between my or your lips. The time has come to speak with care, to make speaking an act of care. In the context of mainstream sadism, compassion is rebellion. And rebellion has ever been the instrument, the demand, that this atrocity will end, that a movement of ghouls will devour no more, and that this maw of earth will be denied another corpse. Be ferocious in your care, and be compassionate in your convictions.